Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. Of course, we just are in this space of many of us feeling wiped. How are we doing out there, right? There's a lot going on. I just did a video for a heart-centered meditation. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these. And I wanted to kind of share, well, a couple different things. Where do I begin? The heart-centered meditation I've been guided to really focus on. Every time I go to sleep at night lately, my guides, if I ask for guidance, immediately all I see is poof, the heart. And what happens when I go into that space, I feel emotional. Tears come up. I feel compassion. I feel joy. I feel sadness. And these are some of the things I want to just talk about as far as a little energy update. We are all going through these emotions. We're going through what I've seen in my field as a massive heart awakening. With everything going on, obviously, with what we just experienced with, my goodness, I could go into so many different places. With everything we've experienced the last 2 years, and now what we're experiencing with Ukraine and Russia, there is so much emotion that is rippling through the collective, that it's palpable. So I'm being reminded to remind everybody as to why our guidance teams have been sharing with us for the last 3 years, especially. It's so important to stay focused and grounded, because as we go through these experiences, it's easy for all of our emotions to pull us into a downward spiral. And I did a video on this. I haven't posted it yet because that took me too long to upload it. So I did that heart-centered meditation because every time I ask for guidance, it's like, get back into the heart. What does that look like? So I invite you to go back and watch that if you want to participate in that meditation. I'm going to be trying to do it daily, and it's going to look like the video I just did wearing this shirt. I'll call it the heart-centered meditation, the heart bubble. There's so many different tools that we can use to stabilize our frequencies. We are all literally feeling this storm. And that's what it feels like. It feels like a constant bombardment on the senses. Many people are experiencing extreme despair, grief, anger, sadness, anguish. And what happens is, as we experience these, we feel the need to purge them as well and express them and integrate them. And so what happens is sometimes, so we're all processing our own unique individual whatevers on top of this collective purge, on top of, right, layer after layer after layer of stuff. And now we're being faced with the sadness that we're seeing of the mistreatment of other human beings. We've been exposed to so much in the last 3 years that it can be extremely overwhelming, and psychologically and emotionally, well, drowning is the word that I keep hearing, suffocating, drowning. And so the only thing that we ultimately sometimes have the power to do is focus on the heart and focus on compassion for each other and focus on what's right here in my reality now that I have the capability and access to. We don't necessarily have access to the Ukraine right now or the people who are suffering there, but we do have access to the people who are suffering here. And it could be someone who's suffering from depression. It could be someone who is, I'm going to get emotional, someone who can't put food on their table this week. It could be someone in our local church who might just need somebody to talk with. Some people that just need to be heard, that feel alone and isolated. It could be that it's someone who's gone through a traumatic experience recently, that have lost a loved one, or are having health issues that they are feeling, some people are going through feelings. So this is what we do have access to. And so this is what my guidance team constantly keeps sharing with me. And this week I've had sessions with beautiful human starseed light workers who have the biggest hearts. I grieve with them. I have to pause this video. I grieve with them because I am connected. We are all connected. We're all humans. Whether we think we are from one race or another race, whether we think we're a starseed or we identify with a particular place, thing, story, is irrelevant when it comes down to recognizing that we are all one human family. And so what I've felt this week is some of our family needs more support than others. That can be literal our blood family, or it can be literal our DNA family, which is human, right? How do we go about this? And so some of the synchronicities that have come up for me this week is get back to the basics, which I always talk about: heart-centered awareness, song, and dance. I got to give a shout out to someone I follow on Instagram, Sister Shanti, I think, Shanti. I think that's her name. Apologies. But I just love, I'm not on social media very much because I am very busy. But when I do pop on there, she posts so much stuff that it just pops up and it's like some stupid video of somebody dancing. And one of my favorite ones, she was like me working through the shadow. You guys, ultimately, we've got to let a little laughter in this. It doesn't mean that we're being insensitive, okay? It doesn't mean that we are not feeling sadness and feeling it for our brothers and sisters. But if we're continually feeding the sadness with more sadness and more, then it doesn't give us the opportunity to recenter, to assess, because all of that that's going on outside of us is triggering things inside of us that are showing up for us to look at, to recognize, to be aware of. And what I'm hearing is a lot of nerves are on edge right now. Yet at the same time, sometimes it's when we're at our lowest, most humble of spaces is when we truly bridge into our next stage, or we truly bridge into our next community or connection. And that's when we truly bring ourselves into unity and oneness, and from that place of compassion, humble compassion. So there are those that are feeling angry and frustrated, and I understand because I go through it too. I see some of the things that my clients are experiencing from all walks of life, from all around the world, from all life experiences, right? And ultimately, it's just so much. I'm going through my own process. Process it sees. I'm seeing processes within my own self opening and expanding. And yet, this can make my own experience, this can make me feel raw at times, right? Raw, war, okay? And it's so important as I recognize within me what's happening to then recognize the micro to the macro and the macro to the micro. And so I am not able, and I was just sharing this with a client who is just in it. She was so distraught and essentially making herself sick. And I'm saying this because I'm seeing this as a synchronicity, a common theme that so many of us are experiencing right now. But we cannot be at our highest resiliency and be effectively assisting one another in the new geometry and frequency, if we are not able to come into a higher space of acuity and inner knowingness in order to work through this immense, I'm hearing all kinds of E's now, sovereignty, relativity, creativity, right? So how do we support our children if we're completely pulled down into this spin, right? For those mothers out there who are going through their own grief, we're all going through this. So we really are becoming, we have to be self-reliant, and yet we do have community. We're not alone. So recognizing that the only way we're going to work through this is together. But we have to keep it together too. And the only way we can sometimes keep it together in our own self is by asking for help. And sometimes helping others is what helps us keep it together, right? So that's where we're at. That's the kind of, in a nutshell, what I'm recognizing energetically. You guys, I'm tired. I'm doing a lot of work in dream time. I'm not sleeping. My sleeping patterns are disrupted, right? I'm being required to change my diet, right? I'm being required to step it up. And many of us are feeling that. I'm tapping into all of these extrasensory abilities that are coming online. I'm processing that. I'm, married. I have a relationship with my husband that we are, wanting to connect with each other. I have family, just like everybody else. And you guys have so much going on. It's a lot. So we have our basic things that we can work on, that we have access to. That's our breath. That's our control of our movements in our body. We have control over what we put into our body and our foods. We can control our relationship with the foods, the vegetables, the earth. We have access to the ability to hug our friends, our neighbors, gift a stranger a gift card when they may look like they may need it. And it's not just what we see here. Sometimes we feel it. We're guided to. There's been a couple of times this week where I've second guessed that guidance. And then later on, I had the answer like, oh, this is why I was guided to do that. And so I'm still always learning, right? In every moment of every day. And we all are. If I only focus on what's going on the mainstream platform, that's where my energy goes, to that mainstream platform. So I've stepped it up. I've amped up my prayers. I've amped up my meditation. I've been doing more work with the earth. I'm doing more affirmations. And for some, it's like, I'm already doing so much. What more can I do? The more that we do to find space in our hearts and our space and our centeredness, sometimes that's all we can do. And that has to be enough. There are those that can do more because that's the role, the identity, the ability that they have access to, that they are choosing to perpetuate from. And each of us is important, just so you know. Sometimes we're here to support the support system. We may not be in politics. We may not be in the medical world. I gave my doctor the book called, where is it? Healing with Love by Leonard Laskow, MD, as a gift, as a thank you. That he may never read it. Maybe he'll give it to one of his doctor friends. My point is, we all have these little ripples that add up to a big pebble on the water. And there's so many different areas I could go with that. I'm not going to make it too much longer. I'm just going to go into a little flow from here. I feel like there's questions. I will say this, for those intuitives, when I go into the field, which I've been avoiding, I used to give like kind of energy updates with what the potentials were in the field. My guidance team is like, focus on what you can focus on to assist the collective. And ultimately, we're in it. The choices that we make moment to moment are creating our reality. How we choose to show up and how we choose to interact with each other and how we choose to care for our bodies is a direct reflection, micro to macro. So what's happening is a ripple from the past because of a collective choice, a collective of choice points that were made for many different individuals, collectively sending out this energy. Whether or not it's you, you are who you are now in this moment, sending out a ripple for the future. Therefore, boy, I could get into past, present, and future and sending things back to the womb and sending things back to 5 years ago. And maybe that's something I can do in a workshop. But we are changing the future now. And what we're seeing now is a result of what we are hearing from the past. It's an echo, essentially, that's playing out. It has to play out. Yet we are still creating in this now moment how it plays out. Recognizing that that is within our power is scary for some people, but it is real from my perspective. So if we can choose now to find that space, that center of gravity in every action and interaction that we have, this affects the entire collective experience, and it can change a potential outcome that's seen in the future now so that it doesn't happen in the future. It's physics. Yes, I said physics. I am not a physicist. I see things that physicists and doctors and people who are very only analytical do not see. Yet they see things with their educated understanding that I do not understand, but I can feel into it, as many of you do as well. So we're invited to merge those things together. My guidance team keeps calling this the Great Convergence. Many great minds and many great intuitives are working together in this now moment. So, okay, I'm just going to kind of end on that note. Go into a little bit of flow, and then I'll end this. So as we are invited to look in, we see through, we recognize in this view, whether the glass is half empty or half full, we then come into a greater state of composure and compensation. We begin to compensate. We begin to be in a space of compassion, compassionate compensation. We become mutable from one perspective. This is actually like a combination of merging together immutable. I'm hearing amicable. We recognize that our energies have been very scattered. Our thought processes have been scattered to the wind, if you will, the four winds. And we have been forewarned about this. We have been forewarned about the winds of change, yet many were so, I'm hearing, in a place of overcomplication, in a place of over introspection, that they were unable to see the forest through the trees. And now here we are, standing together, looking at the complexity of the situation that we have created as an entire community, if you will. And we are being invited to come together as a community now within this system to essentially pull apart I'm hearing the energies that are pulling apart the community. We are being invited to see through the trees and to see the bigger score. We are being invited to see the bigger scoreboard, if you will, the true playing board and schematic that has been shaken up and scattered, if you will, to the four winds. So you are all scattered. You are all in each directional flow, if you will, north, east, south, west, above, below. We are being invited to pull up from the ground floor, and we are being invited to see into our ability to pull down into our community through this network, our higher capacity. So I'm seeing this as an example of like the bigger versions of us coming into our bodies and the bigger versions of us landing here on Earth. But we have a ground floor structure that we still have to, I'm hearing compound. So that's a play on words. Compound, comprehend, and to compact. So it's this fluid, we've got this loosey-goosey energy right now. And we're being invited to really anchor and ground our own frequencies because we are the stabilization. We are the abilities that are, our abilities are what are destabilizing the old. Yet, so it's this in-between, that's happening right now. So while one thing is landing and another one is kind of absorbing those energies in order to create this new geometric overlay or architecture, if you will, we are the ones that are holding it together, literally. I've done videos on this. We are the node, we are the network, we are the nodes. And essentially what this is doing is this is countering the unequal frequencies in an unequal calibration. For we are sending out the call, if you will. I'm hearing the clarion call, the clarion. Korhat ishtur, tik arhustar hak ur, tik arhat inikiara, ashtek erhak ara, tiar kurste enik erhak er ur, ti an akher ak ur. We send out this clarion call to unite our entire, I'm hearing flight. I'm hearing Flight of the Conchords. That's a show, by the way. That's really funny if you guys have never watched it. But I'm hearing a flight of the Concordian. So this is a play on words. The flight of the Concords, the condors, the birds, the flock feathers, all birds of a feather flock together. I'm thinking of the angelics. I'm thinking of all of these beings. So much help from within. And I'm seeing that we've set out this call to unite all of the tribes. Yet we are the humans that are on Earth now, that we are being invited to, through this tribulation, through this tribulation, find the elation, to find ourselves uniting in a new equation, in a new mathematical consistency. So what I'm seeing also is that there may be less of us than meets the eye, but we as light workers and grid workers and star seeds and humans holding the rainbow frequency in DNA are literally deconstructing the construct. We're equalizing it. So there might be 20 of these loud noises that are distraction, and 5 of us are like, boom, silence. We're bringing it back into. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to find our center as often as possible. Doesn't mean we're going to find it all the time. Finding ourselves back in the space of inconsistency, finding ourselves, I'm seeing 2 steps back to go forward, can be quite frequent in these now times, can feel quite frequently invasive. It can feel like it's invading our private sector. We can feel as if our own privacy and our own ability to find our own sovereignty is being countered at each move and turn that we make. Yet what we don't see necessarily is that we are actually tuning into this and we are countering it in our own way, in our own ability to see beyond. I'm seeing a sequencing of events. So we're seeing through this play in our own ability that is a multidimensional view. And we can see 5 steps ahead through our intuition, play on words, ooh, so much here. What we are able to intuit at the ionic experience, at the deeper layers. And so we're actually, those that are aware, I like to just think of being aware rather than awake. It's aware. It's more of a neutral space. We're then able to harness the help and the extrasensory opportunities that are here now at the same time, because this is a convergence as all of this other stuff that's playing out. And that's key. And I'm being guided to really hone in on that a little bit. So while this other stuff is going on and we are feeling these emotional releases and stirring up of old emotions of fear and previous lifetimes too. Many of us have experienced Atlantis and Lemuria and these other versions of Earth that were destabilized and went through some things. Yet we're here now. So many of us are feeling that come up. And also fear and sadness for our brothers and sisters and possibilities for our grandchildren, so on and so forth. But because we're feeling a little bit more of who we really are, and we're understanding a little bit more of what's really going on, we can then counter these abrasive energies, and we then are able to brace against them in a more fluid manner. So it's almost like when you brace against the storm and the wind. The several dreams that I've had is these massive electrical storms, these massive tidal waves. It's rather than fighting it, we're just figuring out and feeling into ways to flow with it. So what I was shown is letting the wind move through us and the water move around us, being like seaweed rather than pushing up and fighting so much. Sometimes we are called to put up our dukes, so to speak, but this is more, it's a different kind of, there's so many words that are coming in. Also, what I was shown was I had a dream where I tied myself to a tree while this massive tidal wave came. So that was a symbol for me of recognizing that sometimes we just have to hang on and it's going to wash through us. But I have this help with the system of the roots and the mycelium, who are us, who are one another, who are the starseed community, who are the humanity. That is, we're feeling that deeper resilience of truth in humanity, not what we've been told we are, not what we've been told we must believe in. We are sensing through all of our senses what's really necessary. Play on words. So as we allow ourselves to band together, we form these communities. And when I say band, I'm saying a band, a rubber band, a music band, a symphony, a community, a coming together. And we literally change the chord of the notes that are being played. We change the rules and therefore the accordances, moving forward accordingly. Therefore, the reality that we connect with must attune to us. So I'm going to end on that note because there's so much coming in and I'll have to do another video. But in love and light, guys. Namaste.